Welcome. Happy Monday, everyone. I am so glad you're here. Today we're going to be making a super cute card with little pop-out blocks. How fun is that? I love a good fun fold, and especially one that looks kind of plain and boring from the outside and then opens up to reveal a really fun surprise. So I've actually cut out three of them. I've got a boy card, a girl in pink, like the one we just saw, and a girl in purple. So I'm excited to share. I don't know if we'll get to all three of them. It depends on whether or not you guys get the hang of it through the first one or if we'll continue on through another. I just thought it was so fun I couldn't stop playing with it. So welcome everyone, and I'm excited you're here and ready to learn a fun fold card. Okay, here we are. We're going to be using the Cutest Onesie bundle and the mini alphabet die. Now, the Cutest Onesie dies are littler. I know we just redid all of our packaging to these great big envelopes, but this one's just a little cute one. And they're very useful images, and the fact that there's less of them keeps the price down. So it's a very affordable bundle, which is a good thing because it's kind of a one-shot deal. I mean, you can do congratulations on something else or wishing you lots of joy, but for the most part, this is definitely a baby set. And I know everybody's knee-deep in doing Christmas cards, and I have done quite a few of them, but I just thought, let's just take a break from that for a minute and play around with some baby blocks. Okay, this one uses the Floral Charm Designer Series paper, but I couldn't really find a good boy pattern in our Designer Series papers, most of them. So what I did is I grabbed our Color Families papers. And are you guys all familiar with those? Do you know that we have a set of Designer Series paper in all of our color families? So let's see. I'm just trying to grab one down here. It's a pack of 48 sheets, and of course each color family has 12 colors. So you would get multiple sheets of each of the colors, but all the patterns are the same. And so this is a great way to get lots of colors in very simple patterns that can be used on just about anything. This is the Regal family. Of course, for our baby blue, I use that out of the Subtles family. But every year, Stampin' Up! Comes out with just a subtle pattern, and then they provide it in all of our colors. So we're going to be using that for our card today. We're going to start out with a card base. It's actually cut from a 12 by 12 because I wanted this to have 4-inch panels. And so this is 12 inches across, 5.5 inches tall, scored at 4, and then again at 8. Okay, my first one is a mountain fold, and then the second one's going to be a valley. Then we have some pieces to go with it. So on the front, I'm going to use 2 pieces that are going to come together and make a 4 by 5.25 together. Okay, so one of them is 4 inches by 2.25, and the other one is 4 inches by 3 inches. Now with this one, it was really nice and simple because I cut one 4 by 5.25, and then I cut it 2 inches up so that I could use the same piece of Designer Series paper. For this one, I chose to use the more subtle of the backgrounds, so I did have to cut 2 different pieces. But if you have a really great set of papers and you can come up with one that is, a nice pattern on the top and something subtle on the bottom, which most of ours do, you can get away with just the one. Okay, so this is going to go on the front, and because there's a seam, I like to cover a seam up with just a little 1/2-inch strip. And so this is using blueberry bushel. Okay. Then, of course, we're going to be cutting a circle out of probably balmy blue. And then I have some pieces where we're going to be cutting out our little rattle and the pocket, and then the letters on the inside. So I just grabbed some blueberry bushel that has adhesive sheet on the back. Okay, then for our pop outs inside, those little baby blocks, I have these little strips, and I have 4 of them. And it's 6 inches by 1 1/4, scored at 1 1/2, 3, and 4 1/2. So then I had to cut little white pieces to layer over them that are 1 1/4 by 1. And so these are going to be directional. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could, make the blocks smaller, and you could cut it at, or score it rather, at 1 1/4, 2 1/2, and just do it every 1 1/4 inches across. I don't know that you could get away. Yeah, you can't add an extra 1/4 inch the other way because they would run into each other. But I was okay with them being a little off. But if that bothers you, no, it can be changed. You don't always have to follow everything exactly the way I do it. Have fun with it. And because there are the 4 layers, and we see 2 of the sides, I have 8 of those little pieces of white. Then to go on this side over here, I have some designer series paper, 2 1/4 by 5 1/4. That's going to slide right in there. And then for the white side, I have 2 1/4 by 5 1/4 to go over here. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of stamping, but not much. So I'm going to bring in some scrap paper. We need something for that little onesie, and then for our congratulations. Okay, so I'm just reached into my scrap drawer, and I just pulled out some random pieces. I didn't necessarily measure them, but that's going to be okay. And then I'm going to be using this punch, and you'll notice it's got the banner on there, but the banner I'm using is actually a little longer than that one. So there's 2 ways we can do that. We can either just stick it in from the back and then hold up this end, so we're just kind of, if we cut that down a little bit, it will fit directly in there, so we can go this way and just snip the end, or we can go this way and we can punch it out and then just trim off the back side. Okay, so that's going to give me that flat end. Okay, again, I've got lots of little pieces. You know how this drives me crazy. So let's put a few of these things together. We know what we can work on right away. We can get the front on here. So let's go ahead and start with that. So remember, overall, the 2 of these together are going to be a 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to trim them down. They're not going to be 4 by 5 1/4 because we have a 4-inch front, not a 4 1/4, because of the 3 panels. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these down and make them 3 3/4 instead. It wouldn't be alive unless I made some sort of tiny mistake, right? But I'm glad that it's shortening them and not trying to make them longer, because we can always trim down. I can't glue it back on. So that all works. But as I started saying, what we want to do is lay it down as if it was going to have the border all the way around. And so I want it equal on the two sides and the top. Then I'm going to bring in my second piece. And then this one I can probably butt up against there and it's going to just fit up perfect. And this one does. Now, if I had made some sort of mistake, I can move this down just a little bit and leave an empty spot in the middle, because that's what this is for. This strip is to make sure that we can cover up any boo-boos that might happen. It's just kind of an insurance policy, right? If we didn't cut straight or they didn't quite meet, that's going to go ahead and fix it for us. All right. Okay, then we have these strips, which I said we're going to go inside. And so they're going to butt up to this second score line. So I'm going to bring in the 4 of them and just kind of lay them down, making sure that it all is looking good. Right? There's not going to be very much space in between. So I think one of the things I might do is kind of pinpoint where the middle is. Okay, so if I come in here, my halfway point is going to be at that 0. And I'm just going to make a little tick mark just to keep me even. Okay, I'm going to come in with my first piece and I'm going to push that all the way up to the top. Okay, so I'm not interfering with the score line. I'm going up to it, but not into it too deep that I can't close my card. Okay, then I'm going to come down to the bottom and I'm going to do the same thing in reverse. I'm going to take this all the way to that score line, as close to the bottom as I can get it without it going over. And we're set. Okay, now these 2 pieces for the middle, what I want to do is kind of get them between evenly spaced. And I'm using that little tick mark as kind of my marker for where these are going to go. Now, it's not necessarily going to go even between this and this, because of course we have the 2 sides here. But if I lay them in there, I can kind of gauge about how much room I need to leave there. And maybe I can even leave that one there as I adhere this one down as kind of just a little guide. Then we can come in and do the final one. Okay, I'm putting the opening towards the middle to kind of bury it in there. Okay, and then we can choose to either adhere the other side first, or we can come in here and adhere these first. If we wanted to work on them flat instead of once they're popped up. We also could have done this before we glued anything down. But I'm just going to stick down my white layers because the letters going over them are going to be die cut, so it doesn't matter. You know, normally I would stamp before adhering because if you make a mistake, you want to be flip it over. But with the die cuts, there's no mistake to be made. So is anybody doing anything for Halloween this weekend? I know that's coming up with no little kids around here. Like there's no kids on our block, and we've almost never get trick-or-treaters. So I don't even get to see the little kids, even though I don't have some. I used to like being able to open the door and see the little tiny ones in their costume and how surprised they were that you were giving them candy. But it's kind of a bummer we don't get them. And I am not one for scary things, so I don't do the whole haunted house deal. I asked out there on my page which of you like haunted houses and pumpkin patches, and most people on my page agreed with me that they'd rather go to a pumpkin patch. But I know there are some daredevils out there. I'm just not one of them. Okay, now again, we want to be able to put our letters on there. We can again do that flat, or we can do it popped up. I think I'm going to go with it flat. So I'm going to bring in my die. Now the thing about this die is that you want to position your cardstock over where you want it. Sometimes I will die cut the whole thing, and then I'll have all those leftover letters, and I just stick them in a Ziploc bag and I go back and use them later. Or like I said, you can just hover over the ones that you want to use. Now I only need one of the A's and the B, but rather than cut it down, I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll flip it over and do the Y off the bottom down here. And I can do this in my mini machine. Okay, just kind of a last minute reminder, only 2 more times that I can tell you we're going to have that special going on through the end of the month, and then it's going to stop. So you should take advantage, if you can, of our sign-up deal right now. We have a deal going on where you can join Stampin' Up! By buying that ultimate bundle, which is $125 worth of product for $35, or $189 for $99. So either way, you get $90 in free product. Percentage wise, I think the better deal is the little kit, because you can come back in and you can then place an order with Stampin' Up! At a demo discount of 20. And even though you have to pay shipping, that's only 11%. So you're still ahead. If you're looking to get the die cutting machine, say you're one of those who joined me because you saw my Stamping Made Simple on Thursdays, and you're operating without a cut and emboss machine, you can choose the large cut and emboss machine plus $49 in product and only pay the $99. So that would be one way where the other deal might be a good thing. Okay, you might have noticed I put that in upside down, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to make sure that I was getting both of the letters that I wanted. So I probably should have flipped my plates. Oops. Make sure I'm down there getting that Y. Sorry, it's hard for me to feed this through when I have that paper shifting underneath me. Come on. arguing with me. Again, it's only because I'm on camera. I promise this thing almost always works for me just fine. I have had some people say they struggle a little more with the mini cut and emboss than they ever do with the larger one. I don't know why there's such a big difference, but I have never had anybody complain that they can't feed it through on the large machine. And I know it's not working because I'm frustrated with it. Like I said, it almost always works. You see me use it on camera almost every week. But the more angry you get with machines, computers included, the more angry you are, the more they don't work. So I'm going to give up and just use my larger machine. Okay, so I want to spell out baby, and then I want to spell out boy. So I'm just going to move this little piece of paper around on my die till I get all of the letters that I need. Probably should have cut this out before I went on camera. Then it would have worked for sure. There's something about turning the camera on that makes things not want to work. And then I get flustered and it's even worse. Okay, so there's baby. Now we need another B and an O. And then I have that extra spot. And in that extra spot, we can either do an exclamation point, which we have in one of our other dies. We have an exclamation point, quotation marks, periods, quotes, question mark, ampersand, parentheses. I mean, it's all in here. So we can do an exclamation point, or we can do an image, like one of our little die cuts from here. Both will work. Do our little pieces here. Okay, the little holes in the back here are ejection holes so that you can take your pick tool in there and pop those out. I guess those are the same size. Okay, then we'll have one more die cut to do when we stamp our onesie. So let's go ahead and do that. With the photopolymer stamps, I prefer to lay them down on my desk, let them naturally grab their shape, and then I set the block down to pick it up. I get a better impression that way. When I try to put it down on the block, there's the chance that I could have, laid it down a little bit askew. But when I pick it up this way, I'm always in the position it's supposed to be in. Gentle tap, tap, tap. And then I'm going to press down, even pressure, no rocking. I did have someone today posting in a group I'm in saying that they're very frustrated with our pads because they find them hard to open and close. If you have that issue, I would suggest rubbing a little bit of chapstick or a birthday candle, because they're small enough, they'll fit right in there. And that will lubricate it so that it does slide back and forth and open and close much easier. Okay, so this is going to fit right in there. So I'm going to go ahead and run that through my machine. I always put a tip in my newsletter every week, and I thought it was very cute. I was surfing through Pinterest the other day, and I noticed somebody was screenshotting my newsletter to get my tips out there on Pinterest. So I think what I will do is create a Pinterest board of all of my tips so that you can get a good image instead of a screenshot of my newsletter. Because obviously if she's saving them, she finds them useful, right? Okay, so I'm going to take my little letters and just pop out the sections we don't need. Should be using my take your pick tool. I painted my fingernails this weekend for like the first time in a long time. And maybe that's why I haven't been painting them recently, is they're leaving little marks all over everything. I like them painted, but I do so much with my hands that it takes me all of, 4 hours to totally mess them up. I just do the dishes or scrub the bathtub or something, and then they're destroyed. And I've tried the gel polish. I really like Gel Moment. They have a gel polish you can do from home, and then this paint on remover that takes them off. But it all takes some effort. And it's not always guaranteed that it'll stick. It does better than the regular, but not guaranteed. Sorry, I tend to ramble when I'm trying to fill in space while I'm doing a bunch of nothing. Somebody said she's going to a cooking class on Halloween, making zombie zucchini chicken lettuce wraps. That does sound yummy. And that sounds really fun to do on Halloween. It gets you out of the house and doing something, but not necessarily dressing up. Yeah, rubber gloves might be a good thing. I thought about that the other day. I should have grabbed like those dishwashing gloves. I forget who makes them, but I need to pick some up. Okay, I'm going to put the exclamation point at the bottom, but you can see how stamping an image or putting another die cut down there would work just as well. Okay, this is another great use for the take your pick tool. I can use it to hold that little bitty piece of paper that would not fit in my fingers and move it over to my project. Then we're ready to go ahead and adhere them down. So I'm going to put adhesive here on all 4 of them. Then kind of holding them in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the card. And when it closes, it's going to stick to that tape we just put down, and that's going to give us our baby blocks. So it was very important. I probably should have mentioned I did score them before I went ahead and made my card. This made that a whole lot easier. If I had not pre-scored and burnished these folds, it may not have been so easy to open. So don't forget to burnish those folds. Take our other piece of designer series paper and we'll pop that over here. And then we have our white paper. And we'll go ahead and stamp our sentiment. So there's our pocket. And then I have a flagged strip that we punched out. Right, you saw me punch it. Here it is. Okay, so we're going to put congratulations on this one. And then on the inside, a big welcome to your new baby. So that's going to be 2 stamps for that one. Okay, now these are words, and I want to keep my words straight. So I'm going to lay them down on my grid paper, making them aligned with one of the lines on the paper. And then I'm going to make sure my block is aligned with the grid paper. That should keep that nice and straight. Okay, yeah, I did have it that way. A big welcome. This is a card I have done before, but I realized it's not in one of our books. I have made 3 fun fold tutorial books, and this isn't in any of them. And each book has 50 patterns. So there's 150 tutorials between the 3 books, and this is an additional fold. It's just amazing how many fun folds are out there. And I like the books because it keeps them all nice and neat and together and all in one spot, and it doesn't take up much room. And they work out to be about $1 each, which is not bad for a tutorial that includes all the measurements, diagrams, everything that you need. And they're all very generic. I do have stamps set tutorials on there, like if you wanted to do my fishing vest and the little tackle box and those sorts of things, they are specific to a stamp set, and there's a pattern out there for that. But the books all just say use a card base, a coordinating cardstock, your basic white, a designer series paper, create a focal point. And so it allows you to do that with any stamp set, any designer series paper, whatever. And I do have examples of what I've done, but then you also have all of the diagrams. And like I said, there are 3 volumes. And like I said, when I keep getting new patterns, looks like we'll probably have a book 4 at some point. Because I use them myself. I find them very useful when I'm trying to figure out what to do. And Christmas is coming up. They make great gifts for your card making friends. I have quite a few demos who have bought them to learn new folds that they can use in their classes. Obviously, I ask that you not, photocopy it and hand it out, but you can use the patterns for your classes. Okay, I'm going to make a circle for our focal point here. It's a little bigger than this one, so looks like we're at, let's go 2 3/8. Gotta love basic shapes. If you don't have the circle punches, obviously any round die or any shape really would work there. I just wanted something to highlight our onesie that's going to go on the front. And I always say that I want to make sure that I am only doing 1 layer of dimensionals. So if I plan to put dimensionals underneath the onesie, I do not want a second set under here. Now, absolutely you can, but most of my cards go through the mail, and the Postal Service will charge extra if they are too thick. And so I have a rule for myself that I only do 1 layer of dimensionals. Of course, if you're handing it out in person or hand delivering, it does look impressive to have many more layers and things, popped up. I just try to be careful for mailing. Okay, I'm using mini dimensionals so that I can space them around. If you don't have the minis, you could use the larger ones and even cut them in half, or use the edges if you're looking to, make them stretch and go a little further. I have to catch people in my in-person classes every once in a while because they'll throw it away when it gets down to this section, and don't do that. Those little edges are great for shaker cards and long lines. I mean, there's lots of uses for those edges. Okay, now this I want to kind of hover over. I want it some on the onesie and some down here. Now I can stick it down like that, but it's going to be uneven. Because my onesie is popped up, I probably want to pop up underneath this. But it's sticky, so what I'm going to do is just peel off half of the sticky. And then I'm going to leave it behind the round part of the rattle. And then just put a dimensional underneath it, because that will help me make it the same height. So, oops. And I just sliced it. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that there. Now I goofed and I didn't intend to slice the back. I meant to just slice the white part, but I think it's still going to work. So I'm going to come in, like I said, with a dimensional. This is raised up, and adding the dimensional here will raise this up. And then I can, oops, slide it right back in where it was. There we go. And nobody's going to notice. So when you make little mistakes like that, don't panic. Most mistakes are fixable. It's very, very rare that I throw away a card like it gets beyond repair. You know, if I've cut it wrong or scored it wrong or whatever, I can usually revive it. If I can't, I can use it for scraps still. But most times I can fix it. Okay, so there is our baby boy card. This was our baby girl. And then, like I said, I did cut out some other pieces. I don't know if you're interested in seeing how that goes together again. Did anybody join us late and is looking to see it done over? I have a set of purple. I know last time I had two of the same card, I lost half my audience, but if you're looking for another card, I can do one. Otherwise, we are done with our cards for today, and I will just make those into reels and a pre-filmed video, because there's always that option too. So thank you for being here with me today. We will go back to our Stamping Made Simple on Thursday. So I have a pop-up card using punches, so no die cutting needed. And this will be our card on Thursday for Stamping Made Simple. And again, it is something you can do with no die cutting machine, and it's beginner friendly. So come back on Thursday and I'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.